Shalom Alechem, Erev Tov, good evening. Tonight is Tu B'Av, the 15th day of Av. It's also my father's birthday. I wish him a happy birthday, Yom Holed Sameach. Should have good health and happiness until 120 years, B'ezrat Hashem, and hopefully nachat from all of us. I also want to dedicate tonight's shiur for the Refuah Shlema of two dear friends of our Kehillat, Bat El, Bat Avraham Avinu, Shava Refuah Shlema b'toch Shar Chulei Yisrael, as well as Jack Yaakov Cohen. Yaakov ben David Cohen, we wish him a refuah shlema b'toch Shaar B'ezrat Hashem. Tonight is the holiday of love. The Israelis turned this holiday into a modern Valentine's Day. I'm obviously not of that Israeli persuasion, but I do think that it's an important day to speak about. And on Sunday, for those of you who are here on Sunday, I already spoke about the other side of it, the part of which the daughters of Israel would get together and they would dance together and they would all wear white, and all of the barriers and the boundaries and the borders, they all were broken down, and everybody could date beyond their class, their social class, their economic class, all of that. I don't wish to speak about that again tonight for those who were not here on Sunday, so you can ask somebody who was here, or you can join the Foundations class and you'll hear it again. B'ezrat Hashem. But for right now, I wish to do something that I've never done before. Never. I wanted to read to you from a book that you and I have quoted together before in Kehillat Shaar HaShamayim at the Beit Knesset for sure. But in the Beit Midrash, online, I don't think we've ever studied from this book together. This book is called Mivchar HaPeninim, or the choicest of pearls, the most beautiful pearls. It was written, and there are those who dispute the scholarship, but our Chachamim seem to have agreed that it was written by Rabbi Shalom Ibn Gabirol, or in Hebrew they say Ibn Gabirol. Rabbi Shalom Ibn Gabirol was one of the great poets of Spain. Elchanan, are you able to get into the bookshelf that's right behind the bima? There are a few hardcover books. They're like black and cream. Okay. I don't remember what it says, but just get me whatever one is the thicker of the two. There should be two. They're not necessarily together. It's black and cream. It's like a Lulu book.
Oh, I know what that is. One of them is very thin and one of them is thick.
Perfect.
Something fell.
Okay, first the book, then you can pick up what fell. Thank you. Oh, Shalom Alechem. Oh. When did I see you last?
It's been more than 30 days.
It's been 30 days? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'gianu lezaman hazeh. Amen. I need the book.
Oh.
Thank you, Elcha. It's attached to the Google Classroom.
Rabbi, I have a shayla.
Yes.
Why is it when you dry clothes or wash clothes, there's always one sock that disappears? There must be something. There must be some Kabbalistic reason or something. There's always one sock that doesn't show up. It begins the process and it leaves without the process.
I think that I need to find a book about the Kabbalah of socks. That's my only conclusion.
I thought, that Torah, you come with all the questions that are nice. That's fine for today. I'm going to go back on mute.
I'm going to ask where So, this book was written by Rabbi Shalom Ibn Gabirol. He also, many different Chachamim quote this book. There are those who wrote commentaries on this book. Perhaps one of the most famous rewrites of this book is a book called Shekel HaKodesh, written by Rabbi Yosef Kimchi. Rabbi Yosef Kimchi was the father of the Radak, Rabbi David Kimchi. And he essentially rewrote this book in a song. As well as the Baal HaRokeach, who also wrote this book in the form of a song. And like I said, this is the first time I think that we're ever studying from this book together here, and it's an honor of Tubab. Oh, but yeah, do you mind turning the air conditioning off so it doesn't bother Yitzchak's recording? Rabbi Moshe David Gaon writes that Rabbi Shalom Ibn Gabirol was born in Malaga and passed away in Spain, in Valencia, in the year 1022. Born in 1022, died in 1054. He didn't live a long life. He was very young. בימי ילדותו בא עם הוריו לגור בסרגוזה. He moved in his youth with his parents, and הודות לכישרונותיו הנעלים רכש לו בימי נעוריו ידיעות עמוקות ורחבות בכל חדרי התורה ובכל מקצועות החוכמה והמדעים. He, due to his talent, he also seems to have come from an affluent family, from what we know. He received a tremendous education, and he learned not just much Torah, but also many of the sciences. בייחוד אהב את הפילוסופיה ואת השירה. His two favorite fields outside of Torah were philosophy and poetry, song. I think he said that he wrote some 20 books of philosophy in the letter that he has, of which we only have 2. בעודנו נער שר שירים יקרים ונפלאים מלאים ברגש והוד. When he was a young boy already, he was singing very special songs. He learned Torah day and night. Unfortunately, the people around him didn't really understand his talent, and many people warned others to stay away from him. And that caused him a little bit of hurt and pain, which you hear about sometimes in his songs. There was an elder man, Yekutiel, the son of Hassan, who took him under his wing and brought him. He worked for the king, and ever since then his life changed. Unfortunately, that man was killed by the Arabs, and at that point in time his life took a turn for the worst. And I think you see that from that moment in time, sadness and depression and pain fill much of his music and his songs. As I said, he didn't live very long. He lived about 50 years. Some say he didn't even make it to his 30s. It is. Al-Kharizi says about him, כל המשוררים אשר היו לפניו שיריהם לנגדו רוח ותוהו. All of the poets that came before him, and there's some pretty big poets that came before him, their poetry is nothing, it's empty, it's wind. ואחריו לא קם כמוהו. And after him, there was nobody like him. He wrote many songs about nature, about sadness, about suffering. He wrote songs about philosophy, about grammar. Even in his more, what you would call secular songs, I don't like to use those words, but the songs that are less connected to Torah directly, you find that he's so deep that sometimes it's really hard to understand what he wants. It's very difficult to understand how deep he would go. And from my knowledge is that the writings of Rabbi Shalom Ibn Gabirol are not so studied in general, and maybe in some poetry classes or in universities, but in the world of Torah, it would be important to restore him back to his place. He has a fascinating work, and this work, Mifchar HaPininim, is a book of Musar. It's a book of all kinds of sayings and quotes. You can imagine Pirkei Avot, something very similar to Pirkei Avot. It's mixed in with ideas of similar to Kehillat, some Mishlei. You'd hear a lot of asking a Chacham, receiving the answers from a Chacham. There are many deep things that happen in this book. And this book was translated to English. The edition that I gave to you, it may be the only translation in English. I'm not familiar with a more modern translation. I might be wrong. But the PDF that I gave you has Hebrew translated to English. The difficult part of translating poetry from Hebrew to English is that, one, you lose the style of song. So I just got a book of poems of Rabbi Shalom Ibn Gabirol not so long ago, in which the author decided to translate the poems into English poems. Now, it takes some talent. The problem is that ultimately you also are not loyal to the exact meaning of the words, because you're trying to make beautiful English poetry. It doesn't necessarily translate. It's not so much a translation as an adaptation into English. Or you try to translate it literally, which can sometimes be very cryptic. And the worst part is when you translate something from Hebrew to English, especially poetry, it doesn't really leave room for interpretation because the original isn't there. And so sometimes the translator will translate something, but I'm not actually sure that's what Rabbi Shalomo meant when he wrote what he wrote in Hebrew. And where do you see that the most? Look at the title of this chapter in your PDF. I'm on page, what did I say, 55 in the numbers, but it's 76 in the actual numbers of the PDF. So on the Hebrew page, what is it called, this chapter that we're about to read?
Shaar.
Is that what it says in the Hebrew? The next one. Shaar ha'ava. So there are many gates in this book. This is gate 25, and it's the gate of ahava. What is ahava? Love. Yes, that's how you translate ahava? Fine. Look at the next page. How does he translate chapter 25? Friendship. In Hebrew, ahava, in English, friendship. Now, if I'm reading through this book, it's not going to be so easy for me to find the chapter of love because it's not in the book. Now, what makes the translator say friendship and not ahava, not love, is because really the purpose of this chapter of Rabbi Shalom Ibn Gabirol is to give us the meaning of love as it relates between two friends. Not necessarily the love between two lovers. And in the West, love is usually understood in the context of a relationship between two people who are in love with each other. Whereas other people may be friends, very good friends, my best friend, my close friend. Unfortunately, in the West, love is usually sexualized. In which case, it would be inappropriate to mention love between two individuals who are not romantically in love with each other. This is a major problem, you should know. It's a major problem in our society, but it's also a major problem in understanding the Torah. It's why you find people who are convinced many inappropriate things between David HaMelech and Yonatan. What does Yonatan say? Yonatan says about David. David mourns Yonatan and he says, right? I loved you more than I loved the woman. Na'am tali me'od, you were so pleasant to me. And this leads academics, must be they were in a relation. No, must be that they were Jewish people. Must be they lived in a culture that is not as perverse as yours. Must be that David HaMelech and Yonatan were in love with each other. The way two best friends would be in love, and when Rabbi Shalom Ibn Gabirol tells us that it's love, it causes a Western translator to write friendship. But here he's talking about something much more than friendship. So to be fair, it's okay to say friendship. Because the chapter before, Rabbi Shalomo told us that it's very important to have friends. So now what are we doing? We're studying about what does friendship mean. Now,
Inspired by the topic.
you want to learn about friendship?
I heard you talk about love.
Oh, the Rabbanit came for a class on love. Baruch Hashem. Rabotai. If I can, where's the baby? Well, give me a moment. I can't read through the whole chapter tonight. I mean, I can, but I wouldn't be able to learn it with you. Instead, I wish to focus on a few of the teachings in the section of love, so we can talk on Tu B'Av about love. Love. What does love mean between two people? And if it means love between friends, then how much more so between a husband and a wife, or between two people who love each other? And so I'm going to skip a few. I don't want to skip a few, but I need to skip a few. See, if I could, we would sit together the whole day. And we'd have an hour of Shulchan Aruch, an hour of Rambam, an hour of Gemara, an hour of poetry, an hour of Mishle, an hour of all kinds of hours, and we learn the whole Torah together. And then Baruch Shalom Israel. This is the kind of book every day we should study a little bit. Right? No, but that's good. It's very important because you cover ground regularly. Okay, let's read the second one. Yeah? The numbers you have are probably different than mine. But the second teaching. V'amar, he says, the Chacham, כשקיימו השורשים בלבבות יראו הסעיפים על הלשונות. When roots of love enter the heart, the branches of love are found in the tongue. You find that when people love each other, they have a hard time not talking about each other. It's usually obvious that when someone loves somebody else, it finds expression in the branches. The roots go very deep. Let me tell you a story that happened to me once. I knew a person who was engaged to be married. And they went to Shabbat dinner at someone's house. It was very perceptive. It was not my house. Don't have to be scared. Went to Shabbat dinner at someone's house. It was very perceptive. And after dinner, the host and hostess came over to this man and said, listen, if we were you, we wouldn't marry this lady. He said, why not? She's beautiful, she's amazing, she makes me happy, da, da, da. She said, the whole night, any question we asked, anything we said, she only spoke about herself. She didn't say anything about you at all. You're not in her world. You're sitting right next to her, but she doesn't talk about you. When a person loves somebody else, by the way, that person didn't marry her. He married somebody else. Today they have 5 children. 5 children. And they're, Baruch Hashem, really in love. When a person loves someone else, it's obvious, you could tell on them that they love somebody else. ולא תראה לך אהבה ישרה, אלא מלב שלם. And there's no real love unless it comes from a heart that is whole. Broken people can't love people. We know this today. Psychologists tell you that bullies are really just people that were bullied and they're suffering some type of trauma. It's not taking away from their bullying. It's showing that usually if someone who doesn't have a healthy heart, the Torah says, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha." You should love your fellow like yourself. What do you mean you should love your fellow like yourself? What if you hate yourself? If you hate yourself, you have no ability to love somebody else. And therefore, people who hate themselves usually have a really hard time loving somebody else. So if you wish to love someone, you have to first learn to love yourself. People who get into relationships because they think that relationship is going to save them from themselves don't realize they're ruining their life. Because relationships don't thrive when you run away from yourself. It has to have a liv shalem first. In order for the roots of love to take place in your heart, you have to have a heart. Shalu l'chacham. They asked one of the chachamim, Mahu ha'ava? What is love? Amar, he said, Nitot halevavot v'itchaberam yachad. I don't know how they translate it to English. But when the hearts are leaning, even biased, if I would say, towards each other, and they fuse together. You know how you're going to understand that? Listen to the next sentence. V'amar, he says, כשתרצה לדעת מי יאהבך או מי ישנאך, if you want to know who's going to love you or who's going to hate you, ראה מה שיש לו בליבך. Look at how you feel about them in your heart. Usually, not always, usually if you have love for them in your heart, likely they have love for you in their heart. But when you think about somebody and you hate them, the chances of them loving you, mamash loving you, is very fake, very slim. It's exactly what it says. Kimayim hapanim. Remember? Someone tell me pasuk. Very good. Kimayim hapanim lepanim, ken lev ha'adam la'adam. The way that you see the reflection in water, you see your face in the water, that's the way hearts reflect each other. Usually, if you love someone, they love you back. Usually, if you hate someone, they hate you back. You could be a liar, they could be a liar, but for the most part, honest people are those who, I know how I feel about you, so that must be the way you feel about me. But I didn't come for that teaching. I came just to set down that foundation. This is what I came to talk about.
Sometimes we make mistakes.
Yeah, of course. Because sometimes what we think is love is really not love.
Can I ask a question here?
Yes.
One of the things that's always confounded me, you probably know, have a much broader exposure to the writings of the Rambam and people of his stature, that they never talk about their marriages or their wives. In fact, I just know the name of the Rambam's wife. It was what, Jamila, I believe it was. That's all, I think, that's all anyone knows about that. He never really spoke about love and marriage and so forth.
I can't speak for the Rambam, right? I can't. But I can tell you my theory. My theory is, Ovadia, if I were to go to Oaxaca and ask a man to tell me about how much he loves his wife, me as a man not related to him, would it be considered appropriate
Yes.
for him to talk to me about his wife?
Oh, no.
There you go. That's the answer.
Not at all.
The answer is in the culture in which Judaism is born, the culture of the East in general, most warm cultures, love between spouses are usually private. Not because they're something we hide, but because it's something, just like you cherish things that you keep to yourself. I know that in the West this triggers a lot of problems of, what do you mean? Why are you hiding things? Why can't you be open and honest and public displays of affection and da-da-da? But l'maaseh, we cherish the things that we keep close to us. Though I'm going to just challenge myself, and that is that sometimes later in history, you find some chachamim that are very open about this. I, for example, can think of the Chida. The Chida wrote a book called Ma'agal Tov, or Ma'agal HaTov, I don't remember the exact title. It's a diary of his travels throughout the world. And for many years, this book was like a locked book for me. It was very cryptic. Because it's very short diary entries. He transliterates the names of villages and cities that I never heard of. And even when I try to look them up, the way he transliterates is not necessarily the way I will be able to read what is that place. And also a lot of context, like political context or historical context that I'm not as familiar with. Just recently, somebody in Israel started publishing this book in pieces with pictures and dates and locations and maps and charts, and he did incredible work. We only have the first few years of his travels. But in one of those entries, the Chida writes that he got news that his wife passed away. And he's heartbroken, though he finds himself in a place where he's not comfortable telling anybody that he's going through a personal tragedy. And that makes his suffering even more. He's almost mourning alone. Nobody knows him here really, nobody understands his loss. And he writes about his wife that she was a tremendous Torah scholar. How much Torah she knew, that she was a Hasidah, a righteous woman, and how much he loved her, and there was no woman in the world like her. And so you do find exceptions to this, even in warmer cultures or Middle Eastern countries, but that's my general feeling, is that's probably why some of this is missing. And if it's spoken about, it's not spoken about any person, it's spoken about in general how we love or what we love. The Rambam does talk about love between a husband and a wife, but not about his wife in particular. It's a very good point. It's something to think about.
But is it okay that you appreciate your wife in public?
So I think this has a lot to do with who you are and what you are and where you are, and I'm not going to make rules. This part, though, this next teaching, and I don't know the number that it is in your book. Do you want me to help you find it? It should start with the word V'amar en nekev. Do you see that one? And the Chacham says, En nekev hamachat tsar lishne ohavim. You ever sewed before? The hole in the needle, you ever try to put a thread in there? The eye of the, what they call it? The eye of the needle? The eye of the needle, you try to put the string in and you can't. You have to lick it, you have to twist it, it's hard to get in there. It's an example of the smallest thing in the world. The eye of the needle is not too narrow for two people who love each other. So two people who love each other, they can exist in the smallest place in the world. Ve'en rochav ha'olam dai lishne sonim. But two people who hate each other, the world is not big enough for both of them to live inside of it. By the way, we learned that from our HaShamayim. So Rabbi Shalom Ibn Gabirol is teaching us this based on the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin. The Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin tells us a story on page 7, Zayin Amud Aleph. This man says that when I love my wife, the both of us could sleep on one sword. You ever seen a sword? Long and narrow. He said, but now that we hate each other, even a bed of 60 amot, that's 90 feet. Even a bed 90 feet wide. I was in Costco. I looked at the mattresses. They have a California King mattress. A California King mattress is a segula l'shlom bayit. It's a segula for you never have to even see each other. It's so big that you could be on one side, that your wife on the other side. You don't even have to know you're in the same bed. So this what?
There's a movie called War of the Roses with Michael Douglas where they divide up this huge house between them and board it up, and it's still not
It's still not enough. Very good. This is what he says. Two people who love each other, they could camp out in a little trailer in the middle of nowhere, and that's enough space. They're happy with each other. But the moment they fight with each other, the world is not big enough for the both of them. It's a very important point. Sometimes we make plans assuming that things are always going to be good. We don't recognize that when things go bad, we need a plan for there's not enough room in the world for the both of us. V'amar, and he says, Mi shehishlich tarcho alecha umana mimecha tuvo al ta'amin ba'ahavato. It's hard for me to translate this because the commentaries on this book record a few different versions of how to read this. Let me read it to you one way, and then I'll read it to you a second way. The Chacham is telling his students there's two types of people. You shouldn't believe in their love to you. Here's the first one. Somebody who puts all their problems on you. They're a partner, and they're always needing you when they're in trouble. But manami mecha tuvo, but they never give you their good stuff. You're always good enough for the bad stuff, but never good enough for the good stuff. You get invited to all the funerals, but never to the weddings or bar mitzvahs. They talk to you whenever they're having a problem, but they never talk to you to tell you how things are going well. I once had a rabbi. I was very close. I'm still very close to him. You guys all know Rabbi Rosenman. He was in the hospital last week. My mamash in my younger years, he once gave me a little bit of musar. I was still single. He told me, Yonatan, why do you always visit me when you're in trouble? Visit me also when it's good. I want to hear good news from you, not just bad news from you. And that, something snapped there. I'm sure HaKadosh Baruch Hu feels that way too. Why you only talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when things are bad? When things are good, you never update HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You call HaKadosh Baruch Hu when you lose your job, but when you get a job, you don't update him. No, Hodul Adonai Kitov G'nav Chazno. You complain to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when people die. When people are born, you say thank you. You complain to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every week like to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we pray to Him when people are sick, we pray to Him. But when people are healthy, that's a relationship. It's a dysfunctional relationship we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hey, He doesn't listen to me. I also wouldn't listen to you if you complained at me all day long. I'm saying that in jest. I'm not actually speaking for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's one way. So he says, Al ta'amin ba'ahavato. Don't believe in the love of a person whose love is only when they need you, but not to give you anything good. The other way to read the sentence, and that's why I'm telling you English can't encapsulate both. Mi shishlich tarcho alecha. Somebody who works really hard to get your attention, to get your love. They court you, they suit you. Hollywood. Umanami mechatuvo. But they don't really give you all of their good. They'll open the car door for you, they'll take you to nice restaurants, but they don't let you in. They don't give you from themselves. They're not vulnerable to you. Al tamin b'ahavato. Says the Chacham, don't believe their love. Because their love, both of these interpretations, by the way, give the same idea. Someone whose love is all about themselves, it's not real love. Someone who loves you because it's good for them, when you need them, they're not going to be there for you. I knew two people that were madly in love. Mad is the key word of that sentence. And once, one of them was very wealthy. Very wealthy. And once the other one asked them for a very small loan. Now, I understand, they didn't want finances and relationships to... This person says, I'm not going to loan you money. I don't want to loan you money. And this person got so hurt. You loan everybody money, except for me. Must be you're in it only for yourself. I can't tell you what the person was in it or not. But people tell me nowadays they get married. I'm not talking for tax purposes here. There's his money, there's her money, there's our money. I read an article recently in one of the newspapers that when a husband and a wife pay the bills, who should pay more of the rent than the other one? And the electric bill, the gas bill, he uses more video games than she does. He should pay more in the electric bill than she does. I'm thinking to myself, all I got stuck on was, you're married. When you split the bill, I was like, that's like when I want to feel good. I go to the store and I buy things on my wife's credit card. We end up paying the bills together. But it makes me feel good. For today, it makes me feel good. I didn't get a notification in my email that I spent money. She got the notification in her email. It makes me feel good for today. It makes me feel good. But only a fool is going to think that when I spend money on her credit card, I don't have to pay for it at the end of the month. We both are paying. We're living together, so everything is together. But you live in a reality where it's all the obligations, but none of the reward. Says the Chacham, listen, you can call that whatever you want, but don't call it love. And if it is love, don't trust that love. Because that love is going to disappear one day. Very good. Rachel just mentioned, the parallel to this in rabbinic literature is all love that is dependent on something. Yeah? All ahava shehi tiluya b'davar. If it's dependent on something, it won't last forever. If I love somebody because they're beautiful, guess what? Not everybody stays beautiful forever. I love him because the way his hair glistens in the sun. Yeah, till he gets bald. No, I'm just saying. And then what happens? People who are in love with somebody else because of something, that love doesn't last. I love a person because I love a person, that love is very real.
So which one will be like the safest thing to base it on?
On nothing. Okay, Obadiah wants an answer. Listen to the next thing the Chacham says. V'amar leChacham. So the Chacham said, Mi mi bnei adam tohav yoter. So if I want to love somebody, how do I choose to love somebody? I mean, who do I love more? I want to choose someone to love. Yes? The Beatles. And you need somebody to love. Who do you love, though? Who do you love? Says the Chacham the following. Amar, he says, and again, there are a few interpretations to the sentence. Let me tell you them. Mi sherabu tovotav etzli rabu. V'im lo mi sherabu avonotai etzlo rabu. Yeah. So here, the classic interpretation of this is somebody who's done a lot of good for me. Love the person who's done a lot for you. And if not, then at least love the person that you do a lot for them. That is the first interpretation of this. The idea of ahava, of love, some say comes from the word of hav. Hav lan v'nivrich. Hav is to give. Giving usually causes people to love you. But I don't accept that as an interpretation here. The one that you love. Yes. I don't accept that as the interpretation. Let me tell you what I think it means. The person I should love is the person who's really always doing good for me. They care about me, they like me, they love me, they're looking out for me. And if you can't find that person, says the Chacham, then at the very least,
Become that person to something else.
no, somebody who, he carries my avonot. What does it mean, my avonot? Somebody who puts up with me. Think about a person that you did a lot of bad to them, but they still love you. That's a good person to love. Because you know they can handle you. I mean, if you can't find somebody who loves you, find somebody who doesn't hate you. People don't recognize the wisdom here, and I'll explain. Yes, you can find somebody who loves you, but usually the love, when it's not going well, also becomes hate, because love and hate are the two sides of the same coin. So if you want to love somebody, find a person who has a good track record. That when you do bad to them, they forgive you easily. That person is a good person to invest in. Yes.
You usually see a pattern with the person's behavior and how they treat others, like everybody. It's not just how they treat you. I don't know. I think people, if they have experience, they kind of know. They can pick. They have a sixth sense about somebody.
You know, sometimes there is value in observing a person in the context of how they interact with everybody else. I tell you that I've seen too many times people that are angels to the whole world, and they're the devil to the person that they're married to. I'm telling you the truth. I told you once a story. I went to a couple, they asked for help with Shalom Bayit, and everywhere I went, this lady, she brought me cookies and tea, and every time I finished my tea, another cup of tea, and every time I finished a cookie, another type of cookie. To her husband, nothing. My advice for Shalom Bayit was, if only you treat your husband the way you treat everybody else, then actually you guys might be happy.
Rabbi, what about the story of Moses and Zipporah, or Jacob and Rachel at the well?
What about the story?
They weren't asked to water their camels. They did it voluntarily.
Okay, so there is value. I'm agreeing with you that there is value in looking at the general behavior of a person. But usually, when we look at the general behavior of a person, it's because we can't investigate the specifics. So, for example, our Chachamim tell us that if you want to know who your spouse is, go check their siblings. Meaning, if you can't interact with them, at least try to get a feel for the family. You've met families before where one of the siblings is an angel, and everybody else is a Satan. So what? It's not a proof, it helps. It helps. But if you can investigate the person yourself, you're in a relationship with somebody. So can't you just check out for yourself if they love you? You don't have to see how they love other people.
Sometimes you just have to make them.
Well, that's true, Rabbi, because you
Sometimes you have to make them mad?
Yes, because you know, when I was working, I have a coworker. To make it so short, we knew his fiance, right? She was the sweetest, nicest, very good quality person. But then 6 months later, I ran into him and said, "Hey, so how are you doing?" He said, "Oh no, I'm doing good. Okay, where's Oh no, you don't know what happened. You know, I did something and she got mad and she turned into the devil himself and she even grabbed a knife and tries to hurt me. I can't believe
That's the same person.
the same person he was talking about."
So maybe...
Rabbi, sometimes those behaviors are very subtle. They're not as overtly violent.
Okay.
There are people who are very manipulative, and you don't see it at first. And you pick it up.
So we're not talking about individuals. We're talking about a general ideas. Yes? Look at the next rule. Here's good advice, the Chacham says. V'amar. K'shetohav lo tachnif. Lo tachnif lo. When you love somebody, you shouldn't flatter them. Why you shouldn't flatter a person you love? Tell me the difference between complimenting a person and flattering them. Okay, when you flatter a person, it's usually because you want something from them. Okay, that's fair.
When somebody feels flattered, I guess they just act based on what their feelings and not really them. Maybe.
Okay, flattery is usually false. Usually we try to make a person feel good about themselves. You sold things in your life? The number one thing a salesperson does, Ovadia, is to make the person they're selling to think that I think you're the most amazing, important person in the world. You're the best with your money. This is the best decision you're going to make. And I'm ruining their life as I'm talking to them. That's the whole point. Usually khanfanut, the reason why we flatter is it's a trick. The trick is to get a person to focus on this because I'm really trying to get something else. Sometimes someone comes to tell you, hey, how are you? And I get phone calls like that. And I just say, why don't you get to the point, tell me what you want? I know the only reason you're calling me, and you only call me and say nice things about me when you need something. So why don't you just tell me what you need? We'll just skip all of the story and let's get to what you need. You don't have to pretend. Rabbi, you're the most wise person I ever met in my life. How much money do you need? What is it that you know? Do you need a Shabbat meal? What is it that we're looking for right now? Sometimes a chanufa is usually an art of trickery. You should know that in Sephardic culture, lo tachnif is a very important value. Why? Because we do it a lot. I'm going to say something now that is a racist, generic statement that I don't mean. It's a stigma. It's a stereotype. Usually the difference between what we will call, for the sake of this conversation, warm cultures and cold cultures is the ability to communicate nice, warm, positive things to each other. Yes, there are exceptions. In every world, there are exceptions. I've given you examples of warm cultures and cold cultures in the past. I'm trying to think of an example now that I can explain to you what I'm thinking of chanufa.
History? Or
No, an example. The difference between a warm culture and a cold culture. Yes, let me tell you. Usually, when I walk into a room of American Jews, and I say, I'm a rabbi, usually the reaction is, you walk into a room of Jews as a rabbi, most people don't like rabbis, all across the Jewish spectrum. Usually when I walk into a room of American Jews, there's this rabbi's a jerk. And they treat you like, okay, rabbi, they use the word rabbi even derogatorily. I walk into a room of not American Jews. I'll give you an example. I was recently in a place with some Iraqi Jews. The Shevach, I tell you. Trust me, they don't like rabbis either. Oh, the honorable rabbi, esteemed gentleman. One even calls me doctor. Why? It's a title of respect. Doctor. Both of them don't like me. But one of them does it with chanufa, and one of them does it with, hey jerk, come here. It's two different cultures. Usually when you're giving out these flattering compliments, it's because really you're covering up for something. If you're in a relationship with somebody, communicate with them honestly. Tell them things you actually mean. Use words that you mean what you're saying when you say them. And the second word of advice that you might not appreciate either is keshetohav lo tishal alav. Don't ask too many questions about the person you love from other people. I'm not talking about before you love them, okay? I'm talking about once you love them. Before you love them, you should have asked questions. If you didn't ask questions, and now you're in love with somebody, ki shema timtza oyev, because maybe you'll find one of their enemies. Shisaper lecha ma she'en bo, and they will tell you whatever things are not true about them. V'yafrid bencha leveno, and they will cause you to separate your friendships from each other. Lashon hara is a very damaging force. Lashon hara can work even with somebody you love. Yes, it's true. Al kol peshaim techase ahava, that usually love covers up all the blemishes in a person. But sometimes my feeling of what you told me, it's sitting in the back of my mind and it nags at me all the time, and I think about it all the time, and I second guess the person that I love, and it's impossible that you're going to find a person that everybody loves. It's also impossible that you're going to find a person who is completely good. Can you accept that? There's not a chance in the world that you will find a person who is completely good. How do I know? Because we're people. There is no righteous person on earth who doesn't mess up. So what's it going to help if you discover somebody's flaws now and focus on them? If I open up your closet, what are you going to find in mine? So what's the point? You're going to ask him, oh, what do you think about my husband? What do you think about my wife? Don't ask questions you don't want answers to. Because you don't know. Maybe that guy you met at the Beit HaKnesset, maybe he once dated your wife. Maybe that lady in the Beit HaKnesset, she was once married to your husband. You really want to hear what they have to say about that? What's the point of it? When you love somebody, okay, you made a decision already. Now that's your decision. You have to figure out how to stay in love with him. But a good solution in staying in love is not to talk about them too much with people who might not love them. So, I think for now, I took from Rabbi Shalom Ibn Gabirol some teachings about love that are less known, less spoken about. There's a lot in this chapter. I'm going to read you one last thing. Last one. Look at the last one in this section. I'm actually curious. I'm curious how they translate this one to English. What did I tell you? Files. נבחר פנינים. ואמר, says the חכם. לא אהבני אדם שלא הייתה לי אהבתי זכה כל ימי. I'm going to translate this like this. I never allowed a person to love me unless I truly loved them. And this might go back to what is love. But love has to be real and pure. I never let a person fall for me if I didn't really love them. Do you know how hurtful it is when you love someone and then you find out that they don't really love you? The most hurtful thing is that I felt like I was so vulnerable and I gave you my love and you didn't even love me. And so I never allowed someone to love me unless I actually loved them too. Now, there are things you can do. There are people who like to play with other people's feelings. And those people are very cruel people. Don't play with someone else's feelings. You should know, in our culture that we live in this country especially, I'm not sure that people anymore have the ability to love. I'm going to be careful what I say. Of course, everyone has the ability to love. What age do people get married in normal America? I don't know if there's such a thing anymore even. What's the age of marriage? 30? You can agree 30-year-olds get married? Is it considered weird in America if a 30-year-old gets married?
Almost.
No.
No. Is it weird in America if a 20-year-old gets married?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends which America and where in America, but let's say that whereas perhaps in the Orthodox community in Brooklyn, it's not unusual for an 18-year-old to get married, but in America, let's say 30s, 40s, people get married, you can get married at any age. I recently saw a chuppah of somebody who was 90. Yeah, he married a second zivug, but it was it was in the nursing. It was in the nursing home. It was.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it happens, but So let's say in the 30s, how many relationships does a person who's not bound by halacha, by not touching people of the opposite gender, someone who's not bound by those rules, how many relationships have they been in? Physical relationships, emotional relationships, very deep, intense relationships, not such intense relationships. How many relationships till they hit the age of 30? You could say a few? More than a couple. Some people even encourage it. If their kid is in high school and they're in 10th grade and they haven't taken a girl to the dance yet, or whatever that might be, they're encouraged. What do you mean? You're 14 years old, you don't have a girlfriend? Some people, they push it. By the way, the same people who push it would never let people that age get married, right? I bet I shouldn't say this on camera. Meaning, let's talk about 18-year-olds. I'm just going to say 18 because I want to stay legal. Yes? The same people who think that it's okay for 18-year-olds to do all of the things that married people do. I'm speaking very vaguely. If those 18-year-olds wanted to get married, they would put up a fight. No, you're not ready yet. Committed relationships. What do you mean? You're too young to throw your life away. All of that already happened the moment you let two people do things that married people do together. Minus the commitment to protect one's heart and vulnerability forever. And so, all of the culture that we're in, how many songs? I used to go to SeaWorld as a kid. Every summer in SeaWorld, there's new theme songs, but every song is the same. That two people who are in love with each other, but they know that the love is going to end by the end of the summer. That's what they know. They know they've got to... People tell them, we're dating each other till we go to college because we're going to different colleges, we're going to have to break up then. So what are you doing now? Why are you hurting somebody now? You think you're loving them, but now you're going to hurt them because soon it's going to be August, it's going to be September, it's going to be October. What's going to happen then? I never let a person love me unless I was able to give them real love back. That was the rule of my whole life. Says the Chacham. Velo sene'ani adam shelo hitpalalti ba'do sheyasherehu haboreh. And the only reason a person could ever have for hating me is that I didn't pray enough for him that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should make his life better. Meaning, says the Chacham, the people who I know that I couldn't love because there's something about them that I didn't want to get close to them about, I always prayed for them. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu should yasherehu, he should make their life straight, he should make it better. Now, parents should live and be well. When we walk in the old city, people see a rabbi walking with a lot of students, there's certain people, they always want to come get berachot. Rav Peretz, usually he sees the people, and listen, if you're his student, you know what he's saying. But if you're not, you think he gives bracha to everybody. He gives different berachot to different people. I can't tell you some of the berachot. But for example, if HaKadosh sees that a person is walking in a good way, they're walking in a good path, he sees a young couple that are married with children, and they're happy, and he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu yatzliach darkechem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should make this path of yours successful. And if not, he sees something that maybe needs fixing in this person's life. He tells them, Hashem yoshiatchem. Hashem should save you. He should send you salvation. Right? And it's a blessing also, but it's a blessing that comes with a little bit of I'm hoping HaKadosh Baruch Hu straightens out your life for you because you're not doing a great job at it yourself. The only complaint a person can have on me is that maybe I didn't pray enough for them. Because I really want what's good for everybody, says the Chacham. Even the people I don't love, because I feel like I can't give them my love, but I want them to be happy. I want them to be good. I don't want anything bad to happen to anybody in the world. What's the point of that? The opposite of love is not hate. I don't have to hate everybody that I don't love. I want you to be happy. I want things to be good for you. I'd rather you do it somewhere else. But I want good for you. V'lo ha'emin oti adam al sodo v'gilitiv. This is the word of ha'emin. Emunah is trust. I never trusted a person with my secret. Nobody ever trusted me with a secret that I told somebody else. In his book on Emet, Rabbi Peretz writes, the number one rule of how to know if a person is trustworthy? Do they tell you secrets of other people? If they tell you secrets of other people, you should know you shouldn't trust them. I know people like that, by the way. I know people, their whole profession is to tell other people secrets. As a rabbi, I use those people a lot. Should I tell you how I use it? I need someone to know something. So what do? I go to this, in Yiddish they call this person the yenta. You know what is a yenta? A yenta is like the Jewish 411. You call the yenta, they know everything about, oh, you know that one son, he dropped out of high school, this one, that. They know everything about everybody, and they'll share it with anybody who calls them. This person, other word, in Hebrew we have a word for this person, it's a rasha. That's the word. A yenta is a rasha. That's what it is. Yeah, it's an evil person. They tell everybody secrets. That's what they are. Al telech rachil be'amecha. Don't be a gossiper among the people of Israel. That's what a yenta is. People think it's a good word. I see people with aprons. I'm a yenta. You don't want to write that on your shirt. Yeah, you don't want to say that. They're only proud I'm a yenta. Yes? But this, he says, nobody ever told me a secret that I told somebody else. Yeah, so how to use the yenta? You need the news to get out about something. You're making an event next week. There's a fundraiser. So you know the Beit Knesset really needs some help. And you tell, all of a sudden everybody calls up the Beit Knesset. Or you want everyone to know that your kid just got into Harvard Law School. So you tell the yenta, my son got into Harvard Law. All of a sudden, all of the donors are lining up. All of the people are sending you emails, gift cards, whatever. Because now everyone, that's how you use a yenta. But a yenta is a milshat. It's an evil person. You don't want to be a yenta. Yeah.
He says, choose your friends based on when you'll be enemies.
Very good. Rabbi Shalom Ibn Gabirol, elsewhere in the book Mifchal Pninim, my wife is right, he says if you want to choose a friend, here's the way to choose a friend. When they become your enemy, are they going to betray your secrets to other people? If you can trust them that when they hate you, they're still going to keep their mouth quiet, you should be their friend. Meaning, don't judge friends based on how they are as friends. Judge them based on how they're going to be as enemies. Can I handle this person being my enemy? How would you know? That's a great question. Oh, but that says you have to take it for a test drive. To make them mad and see what happens. I don't know how you know, but maybe you see how they speak about other people. Yeah? Once there was a person who came to this Kehillat, came to my wife, and one Shabbat afternoon they sat with us and told us, that rabbi is good for nothing, and this rabbi is an evil person, that rabbi stole this, and that rabbi. And after they left, my wife turned to me and said, this person one day is going to say the same thing about you. I mean, not a long time passed, and that's exactly what happened. That person went to the next Beit Knesset. Oh, that rabbi, and Yonatan Halevi. It was just the next thing. Because people that in their nature are always trashing other people that told them things in confidence, they're going to do the same thing to you. Yes? Like when the person, my parents had a neighbor. Okay, this neighbor, very special lady. She was a very special lady. Weren't Jewish. What do I mean special? Every year she would come, she would sit on her sukkah, she would talk to us. She was a very refined, non-Jewish person, very intelligent, very soft-spoken, a special person. One day, her husband left the house with her best friend. And she was devastated. Devastated. I can't even imagine, I'm just telling you what happened. How could her best friend do that to her? How could her husband do that to her with her best friend? It's even worse. She was broken. My mind broken. By the way, I will tell you, Harav Peretz once told me that the difficult part of Jews in the West is that all the best friends of the best friends are all friends with everybody. There's a lot of stuff going on in couples and families. Sometimes you get too close to people that are not your spouse. There's such a thing. I once was here, not in the Beit Knesset in San Diego, and someone told me, oh, my husband's best friend from college, she's coming to take him to dinner tonight. So are you going? No, I'm not invited.
What?
Your husband's best friend from college is a she, and she's coming to take him to dinner, and you're not invited? Am I stupid or you're stupid? And they treated me like I was some primitive ape from the land of Yemen who came here thinking that people should have... It's not... Okay, I don't want to speak because maybe I'm insulting people. I don't want to insult them. I'm just telling you, my wife wouldn't let me go to dinner. Okay, I can say it like that. She wouldn't let me go.
No, but you can't come back.
Very good. So this lady, after just a few months, Her husband came back crawling on all four, begging her to take him back. What happened? The best friend went with another guy. Because what do you think? If she was willing to destroy your home, she's going to destroy your home again. If he was willing to destroy his home, he'll do it somewhere. I don't know. You never know. But the one rule, to be a loyal, trustworthy person. ולא שלחתי יד בדבר שאינו הגון. And I never touch something that, am I over the time, Yitzhak?
8 minutes.
I'll finish in 8 minutes. And then we're out of memory for tonight.
Night?
And then I never touched something that wasn't good. I didn't get involved in shady things. Anything that, what is Eino Hagun? It doesn't have to be bad. It can also just not be good. Just stay away from bad things. ולא אמרתי הן וחזרתי בי, and I never committed to something and I said yes and then I took it back. אפילו אם הייתה מאבדת כל ממוני ממני, even if I would lose all my money because of it, I would never say yes and take it back. This is very hard. It's not a halakha here, what he's saying. What he's saying here is a character trait. My yes means that even if I lose all my money, I will never take back what I promised. Which means that he probably didn't promise very many things. My father, I told you it's his birthday tonight, my father always says most of the mistakes in life come from saying yes too quickly and no too late. Sometimes you just say no now. Just say no now. Later you can always take it. Sometimes people commit to something before they think about what they're getting themselves into. It's a very important rule to know. If your yes means something, sometimes you tell a person, they make up with you, who just spoke to me now? Someone spoke to me on the phone. Should the hardest thing when she moved to America? Someone just told me this. Should the hardest thing when she moved to America was how all of her neighbors, every time they saw her, they invited her to their house next week. And it's been 10 years, and she's never been invited to their house. Oh, we would love to have you over for a week. Oh, love to have you. Stop saying things you don't mean. Someone says, hi, how are you? But then they walk away. So don't say, how are you, if you don't actually care for the answer. Imagine you start answering the person that sprouts. They say, how are you? Well, I'm having a rough day. They'll think you're crazy. So don't say things you don't mean. Don't say yes when you're not sure you can promise what you're saying. ואחר כך אמרתי, and the final thing I have to say, says the Chacham. בכל דבר הוא הסבל הטוב. It's good to put up with everything. Suffering, not suffering. Tolerating things is a good thing. Meaning, no matter what people do to you, no matter what they curse at you, no matter how they say to you, no matter how they treat you, it's good to be the person who never says anything back. Our Chachamim speak wonders about people that shomea cherpato ve'eno meshiv.
It's a shemesh.
Very good. A person who gets embarrassed, they get denigrated, but they don't say anything back. I'll tell you, I once, another story from Arapel. Arapel once told me he had a student who for years they couldn't have children. For years they couldn't have children. And so they were on the way to, I don't remember where they were going, on the way to the Kotel, the way somewhere like that. Meron. They were going to Meron to go pray that they should have a child. On the bus, what happened was that a group of people insulted this old lady. They started cursing at her. Like she was like an old homeless lady. They started, so you smell, you get off the bus, you're disgusting. And the lady got off the bus. And the husband and wife, they heard Harav Peretz's class. They said, oh, we should go get a bracha from this lady. She must be a very righteous person, she should answer back. So they got off the bus also. And they asked for a bracha from her. And how did I hear the story? I heard the story after the Brit. I heard the story after they had a baby. And when they came to tell Rav Peretz's story, he told them something along the lines that if you really believe in the Chachamim, you would have got back on the bus to Yerushalayim and you wouldn't have even gone anymore to Meron. You would recognize how great the blessing was, you wouldn't even do anything else. It's good to put up with things in life. It's good to teach yourself. You don't have to answer everything back. I don't have a lot of experience with this. I'm telling you from the book. This Chacham says that. Ela al ha'ohev, and this is the last thing. The only person that's not good to put up when you hear bad things about them is the person you love. It's not good when someone hates the person that you love to be quiet about it. There's two ways to understand this. One is it's not nice to the person you love. You can handle everything on your own. You could decide, I can suffer, but you can't decide for somebody else they should suffer. But I think more than that is connected to what he said before. You don't want the words of somebody else. Somebody called your spouse an idiot, and you didn't say anything. Fine, your spouse didn't want you to say anything. But now the rest of the day, you're thinking, maybe my spouse is an idiot. Someone in the street called him an idiot. You don't want to let feelings that someone else said about your spouse linger about them. Because again, what it could do is divide you. Our Chachamim tell us that two people who love each other, and then they have to separate. It says that the Mizbeach, the altar in the Beit HaMikdash, cries tears. In the writings of Rabbi Shem Tov Gagin. The writings of Rabbi Shem Tov Gagin, he tells a story when he was in the Bedin in Egypt, how a couple came to him and the man wanted to get a divorce. And Rabbi Shem Tov Gagin said, listen, but you know, the Mizbeach cries when a couple gets divorced. And he says, Chacham, I'm okay with the Mizbeach crying, but I cry myself to sleep every night. I suffer so much on this, I can't do it. I can't do it. Of course it's the time to separate. What our Chachamim are telling us, there was a saying I once saw, that as beautiful as it is to see two strangers become friends, it's even more difficult to see two friends become strangers. In all of our relationships, the rules that we read about tonight, that we think about tonight, if they turn tonight into Israeli Valentine's Day, will you be my Valentine? Will this be my Valentine? Will they go party? Tonight is the big party night in Israel. Everyone's going out to clubs and to bars. It's my Israeli Valentine's Day. And Valentine wasn't such a great guy, by the way. But just for the record, this holiday of love is important for us as Jews who believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who learn Torah, who observe mitzvot. What is love? What does it actually mean to keep our love? What does it mean to two people to be so close, their hearts become one, to not want that which is bad for somebody else, to want which is good for somebody else? All of these things require real dat, real judgment. And I wish that Am Yisrael would stop learning about love from movies and learn more about love from our Chachamim. Because when you read sometimes about the relationships between Chachamim and their spouses, Chachamim and their friends, you could hear those words like David HaMelech and Yonatan. I loved you more than I even loved a woman. And we know that love between a man and a woman is the highest love. But someone can love someone else because I genuinely love that person. I have friends that if I don't speak to them for a few months, they get mad at me. I have some friends I don't speak to them for a year or two. Out of nowhere, I need something, I call them, they're there for me, because it's love. It's real love that doesn't disappear anywhere. Hashem should bless us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bless us with love, and the love that we have should be nurtured. If love was lost, then we should find real love. And if we haven't found it yet, Hashem should give us all of the love that we need, and ultimately we can emulate those relationships between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and experience real love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chavah, thank you for learning with me tonight. I'm sorry I did not get the Shulchan Aruch like I planned. Next week I hope to do Rambam and Shulchan Aruch like I've been promising already for a while, so God willing, that will be next week.